Hey, hey.
Hello, friends. It's a Q&A Friday. That's what we're doing. And we want to just kind of dive deep into the questions that we've got
hmm
together over the last week. We've been collecting some things that have popped up and thought it would be really fun to just have a conversation about it today. Each
Yep.
question that comes in, Gretchen will share a little and I'll share a little, and we know that all of you are going to learn from it. So that's what we're going to do today. So to kick us off, we got a question from Amanda that says, "How do I know if I'm actually speaking to the right audience?" Or just the one I always assumed I should be targeting? And this is a super common question that I think is really good to dig in on. I mean, Gretchen, I'll let you kind of start with that. Like, what would your response be to Amanda if she showed up on a call with us?
Ooh, this is a really juicy one. So there's a lot of ways you can go with this. Well, first of all, I would ask Amanda, are you getting sales? Because if you're not getting sales, if sales is a struggle or if lead generation is a struggle, then you are probably not speaking to the right audience. So
Yeah.
that would be my first suggestion. There are ways to test that with Facebook ads or just with generally doing we do what are called CDIs, customer development
Mhm.
interviews, where we get our clients on phone calls or prospective clients even on phone calls and just say, hey, tell us about your business, tell us what your struggles are, et cetera. And we get information that way. So that's where I would start with that is what do your sales look like?
Yeah, that's a good point. What do your sales look like? But also, not just if you're getting sales, but are you getting sales from people you actually like?
Ooh, yes. Good point. Good point. Do you want to work with these people?
Is this a client that you're excited to be getting a sale from, or
hmm
does this feel like drudgery? I know some of that also comes with the length of time that you're in business, knowing if you're speaking to the right audience. Starting out, you're not going to know. So you just have to dive in and be curious and
hmm
take notes. That's really all you can do. I mean, when we got started way back in 2006 is when we started our
Yeah.
business. That's a long freaking time ago, y'all. I know we look
Oh,
good,
yeah.
don't we?
Oh, yeah.
Um, when we got started clear back in 2006, we used to work with anyone who had a pulse and a paycheck, is what we like to say. We worked with anyone, and we
Yeah.
just started kind of supporting as many people as we could, learning from them, seeing what we like to do, and we tracked that. So we would make notes about, hey, we really liked working with this kind of business, or we loved this personality trait of this kind of client. And the longer that we did that, the more we started to kind of notice similarities between our ideal clients, the kind of mindset that they had, the kind of um, category of work that they were in, what the niche was that they were in. And so, when it comes to like, just am I having to figure out if I'm guessing who this is or if I'm resonating with who this is? When you start just by tracking that, then you'll be able to really attract those clients that are the right fit. Um,
Yes.
and I would also say, so how do I know if I'm actually speaking to the right audience or just the one I should be targeting? Um, Go ahead, Gretchen. It looks like
I
you
was
have
going to say,
another thought on that.
we have a great mini course called Brand Soul that
Yeah.
helps answer that question. I mean, I'm pitching something right out of the gate here, but that Brand Soul exercise does actually give you that information of is it an audience that you resonate with? Is it is the language that you're using speaking to that audience? Is it a culture fit? Are you hitting the right pain points? Are you bringing about the right transformation? All of that is covered in that course, and I think that might be a good step in the right direction for you, Amanda.
Yeah, and I also think that part of this is if you've been in business a long time and you already know who your ideal client is, but the half of this question that's most relevant to you or is this just the person I should be targeting? If you have made an internal pivot, if you are looking to scale higher and work with higher tier clients or to solve different kinds of problems, then it might not actually mean that you have to find a whole new audience. It really just might mean that you need to go another layer deeper with the audience that you're already serving. So we like to call this kind of the top 3%. If you think about those people that will follow you like a shadow. If you think of Peter Pan, right? His shadow went with him everywhere. If he stopped, the shadow would run right into him. If you think of those kinds of clients, the ones that you've built in your loyal following, those are the ones that you want to figure out how to have that deeper conversation with. And that will allow you to bring out some new offerings. That will allow you to, choose higher tier products to work on with them. So it doesn't always mean that it's not the right audience. It just means that you might need to freshen up the language you're using so that you can actually go a level deeper with them and with what they want. And we had another really good question come through this last week. So for this person, they've got a general idea of who the customer is, but what they're trying to figure out is, how do I know what motivates them emotionally? And I nerd out on this stuff because my original major was psychology. So when I was in school, that was like, I was really, I was double majoring in art and psychology because I wanted to get into art therapy. But then I also added a minor in marketing because I really wanted to think about how can I connect with people. And that actually kind of ties into what I was just saying a moment ago. It's about figuring out what is the new language that they want to have. Something that you might be able to do to figure out what motivates them is to do what Gretchen mentioned earlier, customer development interviews. So we like to do this anytime we're trying to come up with a new idea or we're looking to make some kind of pivot in the business, basically reaching out to a handful of your favorite clients and saying, hey, I really value your opinion. I'm coming up with something new. Can I have 20 minutes to chat with you? It's as easy as that. Make a list of anyone you think of that you could have this conversation with, because not all of them are going to have the time or the energy to respond. But the ones who do, just come with a list ready of questions. And you'll figure out as you get into that conversation what they're answering is going to tell you what they're being motivated by. And this is something that you really should consider doing anytime there's a big political shift, economical shift, shift in your brand, right? Because whatever's happening in the world around us is going to massively impact how we're thinking and the emotions that we're having. So we know every 4 years when there's a new person in office, that impacts our audience, regardless of who they voted for. Mindset shift because of what's going on. So that means we need to have conversations about it. Or if we are wanting to offer something new, I want to know, how would that make them feel if we did that? What would they be interested in? So that's a really good kind of low barrier to entry way to get feedback on what people are feeling emotionally. Gretchen, how, for somebody who's more left-brained, because I'm clearly the right brain in this group, for someone who's more left-brained, how would you go about kind of figuring out someone's emotions and how customers are really feeling?
Yeah, well, first of all, you let the cat out of the bag there, because you said that we were contacting our favorite clients. And since we are currently working on a shift in our own business, anybody who's had a call or an email from us, current clients in the last couple of weeks, now you're our favorites.
And if you haven't got one and you want to become our favorites, I really love coffee and Gretchen really loves tea. So shoot us a gift card. You're gonna get up that list pretty fast there.
Exactly. Yeah. So to answer the question on how to figure out what motivates them emotionally from a left brain perspective, well, of course, I just go to ChatGPT. No, I'm just kidding. What I do, I actually would go back and look at and listen to customer testimonials, and because you're getting it in their words. And if it's video, it's even more impressive, because you're getting body language, you're getting eyebrow raises, you're getting, smiles in certain places. So you can kind of really see what lights them up as they're talking about it. We get customer testimonials from a place called Share One. We can drop that link in as a shout out to our friends at Share One. But and that wasn't even planned. That was just but what I'm saying is, with those testimonials, we are specifically asking them questions about the products and services that we work with them on. And so we're getting direct feedback about their experience with that. So
Yeah.
we're getting that emotional tie-in to know what motivated them to maybe work with us in a certain capacity. What transformation and outcome did they get from that? So it was pretty that would be my number one go-to for trying to figure out emotion, is what are people actually saying versus on video,
Yeah.
and also in text testimonials, or even on social media as another good platform for hearing what people are saying about you or your business.
Yeah, that's a really good one, because especially if you have an active Facebook group, or you have a really highly engaged audience that they're constantly responding to your posts, right? That's a
Mhm.
good way to kind of get a pulse on what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they're talking about. You can also just be a creepy little spy and go to people's own social media pages, right? And see what they are posting about.
True.
And
Mhm.
that will start to show you also kind of a state of mind. Honestly, that's a good thing to do even before you book your customer
Yes.
development interviews. Like, start seeing what people are talking about and use that to inform the kinds of questions that you want to ask. Even if it doesn't directly correlate, you're going to notice patterns, whether you're left brained or right brained, or you're that unicorn in the middle, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. You're going to notice some of those patterns, and that will give you clues to the kinds of things you could be asking
Yeah,
to.
that's actually one of the things I do regularly, is I get on, a lot of our clients come from the LinkedIn space. They're either business owners, so they're very active on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I go through, I have lists of people in LinkedIn that we've either worked with or that are networking partners of ours. And I follow them and I check in with them, every couple of days, just to see what are they posting, what are they talking about. Because that also helps to shift. Like when AI came out and everybody started talking about AI, I was paying attention to
Yeah.
which one of the people in our network are talking about AI and which ones are not talking about AI, and what are they saying about it and how do they feel about it. All of that stuff. And it's literally just right at your fingertips. And if you know how to use those tools and how to navigate through, you can get that information relatively quickly out of social media.
Yeah. And I think that kind of ties into the next question that came in for us too.
Mhm.
Hold on. That's okay. Yeah. Is it normal to feel like my audience has shifted over time? And how do I know when it's time to update my avatar? First of all, it's completely normal for your
Yes.
audience to shift over time. And if you think about just kind of your own growth as a business leader, as a human, as a husband or a wife, whatever you are, right? Like, your mindset changes, the experiences that you've been through change your mind. Your audience is doing the exact same thing. They're going through their own personal experiences, and it
Mhm.
is natural for that to shift over time. And you'll know it's time to shift your avatar when you're not making sales, you're having a really difficult time communicating with your audience, you're feeling frustrated consistently without outside forces happening, right? Like, you recognize that the frustration is coming from, I know I'm not reaching them. And
Yeah.
so there's two parts to that. That could mean that the audience has shifted, and that could mean that your language needs to shift. So that's where you have to kind of do that internal process we were just talking about a few minutes ago of like going through and reviewing your content, making sure it's up to date, and even potentially doing, some interviews with people to figure that out. But I think the bigger thing is, when you mentally have outgrown, what you've been teaching and training on, then that's where you tap into that top 3% and you start to try and attract more of that audience. And so you can do that by actually updating the language on your site. Start offering some free workshops or trainings where people can hear what you're interested in now. Things like that, I think, go a really long way toward helping you figure out, okay, does the whole audience need to shift, or is it just my messaging? Because more often than not, it is the messaging. But that, I think, will give you some real clues. What are your thoughts around that, Gretchen?
Um, it's definitely normal for the audience to shift over time. Um, I think you said it earlier. It's not necessarily that you're shifting away from your current audience. Your growth and development matures, and that means your audience also matures with you. When you think about when first starting out in business, like when we did, A lot of our clients in the very beginning were businesses that were also kind of in the beginning stages as well.
Right.
And so, we were working with people who were kind of at the same level that we were in terms of revenue and what they were, where they were at in their business, number of years in business, and so on. And a lot of them were just, in that getting started stage, just like we were. And then over time that started to shift, and we were working, our business grew, we had matured, we were making a lot more money, and we had more team involved, and we were growing. And so when we reached that point, the audience that we serve, we could now serve people in that capacity because
Yeah.
we've been there, we've experienced it, we had knowledge behind that. And so our audience shifted, but that doesn't mean we still couldn't reach and still couldn't work with the people that we started with in the very beginning. A lot of them, they traversed along the same track as we did. They grew, and so that we were still working with them. But people who are at that getting started stage, doesn't mean we can't work with them. We just work with them in a different capacity.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. It doesn't, this will be a little controversial, but you don't have just one ideal client. You
Right.
should come into it recognizing that you have ideal clients are so useful, especially from a marketing standpoint. That's actually really how ideal clients were developed. When that whole concept first came out was back in the 50s, and it was with agencies that were trying to figure out, where does my ad money go? So we want to identify who that closest best client is that we're pushing more money and like to get in front of them, right? But it doesn't mean that our avatars aren't still people we can serve. So we have different tiers of clients also. So it may not mean that this tier of client over here isn't still relevant. They absolutely are. We enjoy serving that tier of client. We want to put products and things out there that are going to support them and help them to grow their brand and business. So that's a question you have to ask yourself. It doesn't mean that you have to get rid of them completely, but then also you might start recognizing, because of some new passions or interests or shifts of the economy, whatever it may be, that you're looking to add additional avatars. And so it's not always an instance where you can only have one. It is really, that is dependent on your level of business and your ability to communicate clearly to different kinds of clients. So I think that's a piece that you can really use to identify that. Yeah. And you know what? This question also kind of follows up with that. This question that came in is, I feel like my messaging is too generic. How do I make it more specific without alienating people? Sometimes you have to alienate people.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but you do. You need people to have a clear yes or a clear no to what you're putting out there. What happens is when we have a message that doesn't alienate people, it almost becomes generic by default. And that's why your message isn't landing. That's why you feel like you need a different audience. That's because you haven't dialed into that language. So what you're asking about is, my messaging too generic? How do I do it without alienating people? Actually, you kind of want to. You want to make it easier for people to say a clean yes and a clean no. Yes. And also going through your, Gretchen mentioned it earlier, mentioned Brand Soul earlier. That's a program that we have that helps you identify your brand personality and what you stand for and the language you want to use and how you want to represent that in your brand out there. When you go through an exercise like that, that is an ideal way to make your content less generic, because you're becoming clear on how you want to be seen and perceived. You're becoming clear on who your ideal client is today, not who they were 3 years ago or 5 years ago, right? So you suddenly have this whole bank of language to work from to really make your messaging more effective. And it doesn't mean that it has to be rebel language. I think that might be part of what was meant when Lena was saying, I don't want to alienate people. It doesn't mean that you have to, make an uproar, but it means that there should be distinctive things that they're interested in. And by going through and getting clearer on who you are, then it's going to make it a lot easier for your content to be more specific without alienating people. Because look, when we think about it, regardless of what your area of expertise is, there are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of people that can benefit from what you're sharing. So, you're not going to alienate people. You're only going to dive deeper into the the arena of people that are meant to hear
Right.
your message. And I
Right.
think that's also almost a mental shift that we have to happen because we stay in our own little bubbles so much.
Mhm.
So I think that's a good way to consider that also. I don't know, is there anything from your perspective, Gretchen, about not making content overly specific, but also not becoming generic?
Yeah, it really is a mindset shift. It's a scarcity mindset shift because you think, oh, if I dial it in and I start alienating people, oh, that's fewer people that I'm going to reach, et cetera. But that's actually what you want. You want that smaller pool of people because you're more likely to get yeses. When you do that, your conversion rates, this is going to be very left brain, but your conversion rates and your bounce rates and all the rates and all the things you track, they get way, way, way better when you're more targeted with your audience and know exactly who they are, and you're starting to alienate those other people. And that means they won't click on your ads because they're not the right customer for you. And then what happens then internally in your business is things get easier because you're not taking sales calls with people who can't afford your business. You're not taking sales calls with people who don't really get what you do or think you do want this thing, but you don't, because they got confused by something on your website. It makes things easier when you do this. So it's a little bit of stepping out of your comfort zone and doing that thing and making it be building that language on your website to make it more specific and not worried about the people that you're going to leave behind or whatever however you're saying that. But
and I want to challenge the notion of alienating someone. If that's how you're feeling, if you're worried about your content alienating someone, we already explained that you want to speak specifically, but also reframe this in your head, because what you're really trying to do is to become more connected to someone. So just think of this like your group of friends, right? You have rings of friends, if we're being honest about it. We have the ones we're closest to, and guess what? In most cases, that's because we have the most things in common. Then you have that next tier of friends where you're like, right, I know. So we're total opposites and we're absolute besties. But then if you look at your next ring of friends, they are people that you absolutely love, but they're not part of your everyday life. Then you move a little further out and you're like, hey, this is my work friend, right? Or you have that in any normal relationship. It's not about alienating people. It's about, how do I find my freaking besties and speak the same language they're speaking? We're jamming to the same music. We're laughing at the same jokes. So flip it in your mind to think of it as that, and I think that that'll go a long way for you.
And you can also, with that same analogy, think of that, like obviously with your besties, it's not about selling them something, but it's about the amount of time you want to spend with that person. You want to spend the people who are in your inner circle, so to speak, are the people you spend the most time with. And when it comes to business, your ideal customer those are the people who are going to spend the most money with you.
Well, and I actually really enjoy this next question coming up. So what do I do if I have more than one ideal customer? Can I serve both without confusing my brand? Yes, absolutely. So this I want you to think of, even just going back to that friend reference, right? So that closest tier of friends is your primary ideal client. They're the ones that you have the exact answers for. You can serve them immediately. They are probably people that maybe are able to afford things at a certain level. The offers that you have for them are the most profitable. That is your closest ideal client. Your next tier of ideal client is someone you're still incredibly passionate about serving, but maybe there's a little difference in the profit margin, or maybe there's a little difference in the level that they're at in their business. We have multiple tiers of ideal clients. So one thing that I like to do, I really think about this when I'm getting on a podcast, when I'm being flown in, like I'm being flown in next week to go and speak and teach and do a workshop at an event. When they're bringing me in for that, I'm actually asking myself, which client avatar am I speaking to, and how do I help them the most? So you just tailor your teaching, your training, your offer to that specific person. So if you're someone in the health and wellness space and you're trying to figure this out for you, you have those clients who are like, oh gosh, I really want to do that year-long program with you because I know shifting my health in that way would be a radical improvement, but I don't know you well enough to know that I can do that, or I don't have enough trust in myself to know I'm going to follow through on that thing. So that person isn't your ideal client. The ideal client is the one that can do the year-long program with you. But your other ideal customer is the one who's like, you know what, I want to try this, but I don't know if I can do a year. Let me commit to 6 months. You know, you might have another tier that's like, I would love to someday get to that, but let me focus on the 3. I really recommend not having more than 3 kinds of customer avatars.
Yeah.
Because that's when things start to get really muddy. In an ideal world, people have 2, but you know, you just tailor your offers to them and you make that make sense. So right now, even with the training that we're doing, we are speaking to different tiers of clients with what we're doing today. So we're referencing examples for our tier of clients who already have a platform. They've already got a large audience. We're using examples that are going to serve them. We're speaking in a way for people who maybe haven't had their business quite as long or aren't at that level. And we're using examples for both kinds of our ideal clients. So that's how you do it. It's just about having the conversation that's going to serve them the best. I think we like to overcomplicate things, humans in general, and we want to think that we have this special snowflake situation. We really don't. We just need to be a human. We just need to talk to that audience in the way that they want to be heard. We need to serve them in the way they need to be served. And so there's really kind of straightforward ways to make that happen when you think about who you're talking to, and just make sure that what you're sharing is relevant at that time.
Yeah. I would just
go ahead.
Sorry, add one thing to that. Just make sure that when you have 2 avatars like that, that there's a through line between it. I think you kind of touched on that, but I just wanted to make sure that that was emphasized. You can't be like serving. I'm staring at my kitchen right now. You can't be serving knives at the same time you're trying to sell microwaves. They don't necessarily go together, you know. So I mean, yes, they're both in the kitchen. There's kind of a through line there, but there's not a real direct correlation with that. And that's where you want to just make sure that there is some kind of clear connection. In our case, just to give an example of that, in our case, we have like the Laylas and the JJs, and we have some of these folks that they are just out there and they are just crushing it in their business. And then we have another tier of client who that is their aspiration. They are on track to do those exact same things. They are leveling up every single day, and they're going to eventually, they are going to be the next generation of JJs and Laylas. Making up new client names here. They're going to be that next generation of that. And so the through line for us is it's an aspirational journey. They're working their way towards it, and we know the trajectory, and we know how those other clients have gotten there and what needs to happen there. And so we're able to serve that next level of clients to move them in that direction.
And I'll make one more comment about that, especially when it comes to if you're doing any teaching or training with the kind of audience you're serving. So like I mentioned before, a lot of our clients are in the health and wellness space. Even if you're teaching, you're reaching out to clients that have totally different health issues. If you have a through line that, hey, guess what? My focus is on gut health. So all the health issues I'm addressing are from that foundation. Always still speak to the highest level client that you have, because everyone else in your audience wants to learn that same, they want the same goods.
Exactly.
Right? So really make sure that you are speaking from that high level to everyone you're serving. We all want it, even if we're not at a place to implement it. But then make sure that you're offering examples for those different tiers. So same thing if maybe you're in the financial space. We have a lot of clients there. So maybe you have clients that have a much larger portfolio than others. The people who don't have as large of a portfolio still definitely want to know how to get there. So we're still speaking to that highest tier audience that we serve, and we're just making sure that we're adding in the additional support that the other tiers want to have. So I think that's a really good way to think through that. The next question that came through for us last week was, how do I uncover pain points that people aren't saying out loud? This is juicy. And I feel like I'm missing something. Trish, you're not alone, okay? Gretchen, I want to hear from the left brain first. How do you find this out?
Well, I'm the super sneaky spy type. I'm going to go over to social media and I'm going to see what are they complaining about? What are they posting that's, negative or that has any kind of pain attached to it. I'm looking there to be real honest on that. you're not going to find that on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is mostly people posting positive stuff. They're usually trying to network and sell. There's very little negative on there unless they're just really trying to start something, and there's people on there that do that.
Well, that could be part of their brand, right?
Right, exactly. But for the most part, when you're looking for that on a social media platform, I would go to places like Instagram and Facebook and really look and see what those types of people are looking for. And I wouldn't have, if you have specific customers that you are connected to on social media and you can go and identify it that way, great. Otherwise, look for groups or do searches within Facebook or these platforms where you can search for a specific type of user, or whether they have a specific type of title in their on their avatar.
And I think joining other industry groups is a really good way to do this. So
Yeah.
let's say you have an audience that maybe isn't a really large audience, so you don't necessarily have a big group of people to tap into their emotions all at once. Find another group that is serving the same audience and go in and observe what people are talking about. Offer appropriate value where you can. Never go into a group and pitch. Okay, that's not what we're talking about here. Don't you dare do that. But if like, for us, if there are other branding groups out there that are in existence, or there's digital marketing agency groups, or there is groups for our specific audiences for health and wellness, or for finance, or for attorneys, right? Go in and see the things that they're struggling with at that time. So if it's for somebody's health, I mean, there are so many health groups where you can go in and see what clients are thinking about. If you're struggling with understanding the pain points, that's a really good way to do that. Another good one, and we've said this a bunch of times on the call today already, but would be customer development interviews for sure. And it's about the way you ask. So I'm not going to say to my client, what just really sucks for you right now? Nobody wants that question. Right. But the question is, what are the roadblocks you're running?
You might not want the answers to that.
Yeah, right. That's going to send your call in a whole other direction. Don't waste your time doing that. But what are the roadblocks that you're facing right now? Or where do you feel that you need more support? Or how could this service help you feel even more excited about stepping into it? That's a really good way to uncover pain points. And also, you have to start with some of the things that to you feel a little too obvious. So especially if you're in a situation where you get to actually ask someone these questions, start with the obvious one. Like, hey, I hear a lot of people are really struggling with, the whole reason we're having this call today, attracting their ideal clients, right? I hear a lot of people are struggling with their ideal clients, and they just feel like their content is going on deaf ears. Is that something that you're experiencing right now? Like, throw one out there that is a really easy yes or no. And then start asking, well, tell me more about that. And shut up. Which is real hard for someone like me to do. Shut up. Just ask, tell me more about that. What does that mean to you? Yeah. That is an incredible way to start unearthing things that people might not be willing to say on their own. But that will help you, like, going multiple levels deep to really get to kind of the heart of what they're needing.
And I'll give you a little AI tip. I mentioned this last week when I went through the session on how we use AI in our business. Yeah. One great tip to do is, if you're going to go and troll people on social media, and by troll, I just mean look at their stuff. I don't mean post.
Follow people on social media.
Follow people.
That's what normal people say.
I know. Well, I'm thinking troll, like fishing troll, and then I realized that word is used differently in social media, so never mind. But anyway, if you're going to go and just like spy on people on social media, take some screenshots. And here's why. If you can get a good sample of screenshots, I'd say, if you can get 25 to 30, that's a really good start. The more you can get, the better. But then take all those screenshots and upload them to ChatGPT, and then just ask it to analyze it. Tell it to, I mean, I could generate a really good prompt out of this at some point, but we have prompts for this, but we don't usually do it to uncover pain points in this manner, but you could do it this way. When I said it last week, I was talking about uncovering their aspirations and things.
Yeah.
But in this case, if you're doing it with pain points, same process. You're just going and finding those screenshots where they're complaining about something, or they're just, expressing some frustration or whatever,
Right.
grab those screenshots, grab those comments, and put those into ChatGPT. Let it analyze, and then ask it to go a level deeper, and then ask
Yeah.
it to go a level deeper. And I'm spitballing. I'm not giving you an exact prompt, but you'll work it out. It's a conversation, and put it in there, and then see what comes back, because you might find out that there are things those were saying. What are they not saying out loud?
Right.
And so you're not going to literally see it on the screen of them saying, I'm frustrated by rah, rah, rah. You're just going to be like, this, wow, they're not happy today. Let's take a screenshot of that. And what will AI will do? AI is very good at kind of putting that through line together and connecting all those dots. And it will give you back suggestions and say, well, it sounds like X, Y, Z. It may be right. It may be wrong.
Yeah.
So use your human brain when you get those results back, but it will give you some good information to start with on this topic.
Yeah, that's a really good kind of little cheat code there. And the
Yeah.
last question that we got this week was, can I still niche down without boxing myself in? I don't want to limit future opportunities. Yes, 100% you can do this. Okay, you can niche down from several different ways. It can be based on industry. So, we work with a lot of people in the health and wellness space. So that's what we do. It could be by your services. Like I mentioned before, maybe your specialty is gut health. Maybe your specialty is, I'm an FDA attorney. Maybe your specialty is I work with finances for businesses that are exiting, right? That could be the niche right there. It could be dependent on the tool that you use. So your niche is only a certain kind of testing that you do. There's lots of different ways to do that. And that whole idea about thinking that you're limiting future opportunities is such a fallacy, because think of any business or brand that you have followed for more than 3 years. Something in that business has changed. They suddenly have a new offer that they're putting out there. What it really boils down to at that point is you being able to make a compelling story about that. So a really, really good example would be our client, Layla Ali. She was this incredible world-renowned boxer for 10 years of her career. And then she wanted to shift into the health and wellness lifestyle space. That seems like, oh gosh, that would be kind of a hard thing to get into. Well, no, now it's about, we're taking that whole champion mindset that she had as a boxer, and we're learning to shift that into a story that we can tell about the products that she's selling, about the services that she offers to her audience, right?
She wasn't boxing herself in.
Yeah, but ching, Gretchen. So that is really, that's just a mindset thing, honestly, thinking that you're limiting yourself. Because look, we could be Left Right Labs 10 years from now could be a totally different company, but we're just going to share about the process. We're just going to say, hey, I'm passionate about this thing now. And that's the real key, is the passion part. Yeah. If you are passionate about what you're doing, it doesn't matter if it's shifting away from something before. It's just really pulling in that, like, what's that part of you that wanted to make the shift, and telling the story around that. And that will keep you from feeling limited. And also, niching down is one of those things that you can try on for size. This is something that you can say, okay, I'm going all in on this industry right now, but down the road, you might want to shift it. Well, guess what? Then you start swapping out the testimonials on your site to be more in alignment with what the new thing is that you're promoting. Or you just go through and you share different information about what you're doing now. So I think that's one of those things that we just get inside our own head about. It isn't actually real.
Well, I want to challenge the mindset. By the way, Future Brand Boss, love the username there.
Right.
You're saying you don't want to limit future opportunities, but what if niching down actually expands those opportunities, doesn't limit it? Because if you are niching down and you're focusing on one specific target audience. And that opens the door for you. Don't box yourself in with
Right.
saying that you're limiting your future opportunities, because, and we can give a really good example of this. When we were first starting out in our business, like as Trina said, we had a pretty wide portfolio of clients. And when we niched down into influencers, that's when our business really took off.
Yeah.
And so we could have come into that and say, well, gosh, am I limiting? Am I, as to use someone else's term, alienating our clients? Or,
Right.
no. When we niched down, we actually expanded what we were doing. We were able to reach a lot more clients at the level that we wanted to work with. And it actually did become a lot easier for us because our messaging got more dialed in, and we knew exactly who our target audience was. And we didn't feel like at all that we were boxing ourselves in. Was there a little bit of nervousness around doing that and some anxiety? Absolutely. Because, anything with change, that's going to come. But
Of course.
it's again, it's a mindset shift. It's like, don't think of it as I'm limiting myself. It's a what if this is the opportunity?
Yeah. And also, we have the internet now, y'all.
Yeah. True.
Like, it's we don't have the limitations we used to have when all we could work with was local audiences, right? So there's so many people in this world that need what you do. There's so many people where you are the answer to the pain that they're experiencing. And it's just about getting in front of them. It's about having conversations. It's about being human and listening at the right time and speaking at the right time, so that you can really help them out. So I would definitely say shift that mindset. And, it's all these things contribute to creating that stronger brand, listening more to our audience, finding ways to better understand the frustrations they're facing, and at the same time, also finding ways to say things in the words they need to hear. If that's something that you're trying to get better at, you're trying to figure out how strong is my brand, how well am I connecting with my audience, I want you to go to leftrightlabs.com/quiz. Take this quiz. It's free. It takes like 5 minutes to do, but it's really going to shine a light for you on the areas.
Seconds.
I'm sorry?
It takes about 60 seconds. It's super
short.
Oh
yeah. What am I talking about? 60 seconds to do. But it'll help you. It'll give you scores and say, hey, this is what's working really well for you. This is where you need some support. And that's going to help you stop wondering, is this working? Is this not working? So it's going to get you answers right away. And in 1 minute, boom, done. You have that information. And if this has been helpful to you today, please like and subscribe. Share this information with friends and entrepreneurs and business owners that are looking to grow their brand. So we're here to help you out, and so glad we got to do this Q&A Friday with you today.
Yes,
so I'm fun. Trina,
and I'm Gretchen,
and we're here to help you get clear, get noticed, and get paid. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.